Meet a man with a terminal illness, clinging to the hope that he can make amends and find redemption in his final days. This is the story of Mr. Charles, a man who, despite his failing health, decides to unveil a hidden chapter of his life, a daughter he never knew. In a world where time is running out and every second counts, Mr. Charles embarks on an emotional journey to find his lost daughter. This is not just a story of reconciliation but a profound exploration of love, regret, and the human spirit's capacity for redemption. As the clock ticks down, he faces impossible challenges, all for the chance to rewrite his legacy and leave this world surrounded by the love and family he has just found. What would you do if you had one last chance to set things right? Mr. Charles had always been a man of few words, known for his quiet demeanor and gentle spirit. But as he lay in his hospital bed, weakened by his terminal illness, he knew he could no longer keep his secret hidden. The weight of it had grown too heavy, and he felt an urgency to unburden his soul before it was too late. One evening, as his closest friends and family gathered around, he cleared his throat and spoke with a fragile yet determined voice. There's something I need to tell you all, he began, eyes brimming with emotion. The room fell silent, every eye on him, sensing the gravity of his words. I have a daughter, he revealed, his voice trembling. A daughter I've never met. Gasps of surprise echoed around the room. His loved ones exchanged bewildered glances, trying to process this unexpected news. Mr. Charles continued, his tone filled with regret and longing. It was many years ago before I settled here. I was young, and circumstances were complicated. I made mistakes, and I lost contact with her mother. But I've never stopped thinking about her. I've never stopped hoping to find her. Tears welled up in his eyes as he shared the story of his lost daughter, a story he'd kept buried deep within his heart for decades. He described the fleeting romance with her mother, the heartbreak of their separation, and the painful decision to let go, thinking it was for the best. But now, he said, his voice breaking, I can't leave this world without trying to find her. I need to make things right. I need to tell her that I've always loved her, even from afar. The room was filled with a heavy silence, the air thick with emotion. His friends and family looked at him with a mixture of shock, sympathy, and determination. They understood the importance of his revelation and the urgency of his quest. They vowed to help him find his daughter, to bring her into his life and fulfill his final wish. As the night wore on, plans were made, and hope began to blossom amidst the sorrow. Mr. Charles felt a renewed sense of purpose, a glimmer of hope that he might at last reunite with the daughter he had lost so long ago. His secret was no longer a burden but a mission, a final chapter in his life that he was determined to write. The journey ahead would be challenging, filled with uncertainty and emotion. But with the support of his loved ones, Mr. Charles was ready to face whatever lay ahead. He knew that finding his daughter would be a race against time, but it was a race he was willing to run with every ounce of strength he had left. With a newfound sense of urgency, Mr. Charles's family and friends embarked on the search for his lost daughter. They began by piecing together the fragments of the past that Mr. Charles could remember. Names, places, and events that might lead them to her. Emily, Mr. Charles's niece, took the lead. A journalist by profession, she had a knack for uncovering hidden stories and connecting dots. She started by searching through old records, tracing the timeline of Mr. Charles's relationship with the girl's mother. Hours turned into days as she pored over documents, contacted various agencies, and scoured social media. The family reached out to friends and acquaintances from Mr. Charles's youth, hoping someone might remember a detail or have information that could help. Each phone call and meeting brought them a step closer, and the picture of the past began to take shape. One afternoon, Emily received a promising lead. A former neighbor remembered a woman who fit the description of the girl's mother. She had moved away abruptly, but the neighbor recalled that she might have relocated to a small town several states away. Excited by the breakthrough, Emily immediately planned a trip to follow this new lead. The town was quaint and unassuming, the kind of place where everyone knew each other. Emily visited the local library and town hall, searching through archives and talking to residents. She found a librarian who remembered the woman in question and directed her to a nearby neighborhood where she might still live. With a mix of anticipation and nervousness, Emily knocked on doors, asking about the woman and her daughter. It wasn't long before she found someone who knew them. Yes, I remember them, an elderly woman said. The daughter, Sarah, she was always such a sweet girl. They moved to the city a few years ago, but I have an old address book with their last known address. Emily's heart raced as she copied down the address. This could be the breakthrough they needed. She immediately called Mr. Charles, her voice filled with hope. Uncle Charles, I think we've found her. I'm going to the city to follow this lead. The family rallied together, supporting Emily from afar as she traveled to the city. The address led her to a modest apartment building. She took a deep breath and knocked on the door. A woman opened it, her eyes widening in surprise as Emily introduced herself and explained her quest. I'm looking for Sarah, Emily said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. It's about her father. The woman's face softened, and she invited Emily inside. I'm Sarah's aunt, as she explained. As Sarah is at work right now, but I can tell you more. Emily sat down, listening intently as the aunt shared what she knew. Sarah had grown up knowing little about her father, believing he had abandoned them. The news that he had been searching for her all these years, and that he was now terminally ill, would be a shock. As the conversation continued, Emily felt a deep sense of empathy for Sarah. She knew that this reunion would be emotional and complicated, but it was essential for both Sarah and Mr. Charles. When Sarah returned home, her aunt gently broke the news. Sarah was stunned, her emotions a whirlwind of confusion, anger, and curiosity. Emily spoke to her with kindness and honesty, sharing Mr. Charles's story and his heartfelt desire to meet his daughter. It's a lot to take in, Emily said softly. But he's a good man, and he's never stopped thinking about you. He wants to make things right. Sarah agreed to meet her father, her mind swirling with questions and emotions. The journey had been long and fraught with challenges, but the search was finally over. The next step would be the most difficult and the most important, bringing Sarah and Mr. Charles together at last. The day had finally come for Mr. Charles to meet his daughter. The air was thick with anticipation and emotion. In his hospital room, Mr. Charles was both nervous and hopeful, his heart racing with the possibility of reconciliation. His family gathered around him, providing words of encouragement and support. Sarah, on the other hand, was a bundle of mixed emotions. She had spent the night tossing and turning, grappling with the news that had turned her world upside down. With a deep breath, she stepped into the hospital, her aunt by her side, guiding her to the room where her father waited. As Sarah approached the door, her heart pounded in her chest. She hesitated for a moment, gathering her courage, and then slowly pushed it open. Inside, Mr. Charles looked up, his eyes instantly welling with tears. The room fell silent as father and daughter locked eyes for the first time. As Sarah and Mr. Charles whispered, his voice breaking, "You're here." Sarah took a step forward, her eyes searching his face. Dad?" She said softly, her voice trembling with emotion. She couldn't believe she was finally meeting the man she had wondered about her entire life. Tears streamed down Mr. Charles's face as he extended a hand toward her. "I've waited so long for this moment," he said, his voice filled with regret and longing. "I'm so sorry for everything." Sarah walked to his bedside, her own tears flowing freely now. She took his hand, feeling the warmth and strength that had always been missing from her life. "I've thought about you so many times," as she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Why did you never come for me?" Mr. Charles's face crumpled with pain. "I made mistakes, Sarah. I thought I was doing what was best for you, but I was wrong. I've regretted it every day since. Can you ever forgive me?" Sarah looked into his eyes, seeing the sincerity and the anguish there. She felt a mix of anger and compassion, but most of all, she felt a deep longing for the connection they had both missed. "I don't know if I can forgive you right away," as she admitted, her voice raw with honesty. "But I want to try. I want to know you." Mr. Charles nodded, his heart swelling with hope. "That's all I could ask for," he said. "Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for giving me a chance." As they spoke, the room seemed to shrink around them, the world outside fading away. They talked for hours, sharing stories and memories, filling the gaps that had long separated them. Mr. Charles told her about his life, his regrets, and his dreams. Sarah shared her own journey, her triumphs, and her struggles. Their conversation was filled with laughter and tears, as they slowly began to bridge the years of separation. The bond between them grew stronger with each passing moment, the love and connection that had always been there finally coming to the surface. Mr. Charles's health continued to decline, but the reunion with Sarah gave him a renewed sense of purpose. He cherished every moment with her, savoring the time they had together. Sarah, too, felt a sense of healing and closure, finding peace in the father she had always longed to know. In the days that followed, Mr. Charles and Sarah made the most of their time. They walked in the hospital garden, sharing stories and dreams. They laughed together, cried together, and built a bond that would last a lifetime, even if their time was short. As Mr. Charles's final days approached, Sarah stayed by his side, holding his hand and offering comfort. She had found not only a father but also a sense of closure and peace. Mr. Charles passed away surrounded by love, his heart full and content, knowing he had finally made things right. Sarah left the hospital with a heavy heart but also with a sense of hope and renewal. She had found her father and, in doing so, had found a part of herself. The emotional encounter had been the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with love, forgiveness, and the promise of a brighter future. The initial reunion between Mr. Charles and Sarah was filled with raw emotion and heartfelt conversations, but it was only the beginning of a challenging journey toward building a new family bond. There were years of separation and unanswered questions that needed to be addressed, and the road ahead was not going to be easy. Sarah struggled with mixed emotions. While she was grateful to finally meet her father, she couldn't ignore the pain of feeling abandoned for so long. Trust had to be rebuilt, and wounds had to heal. Mr. Charles, on the other hand, was determined to make the most of the time he had left, hoping to mend the rift and create lasting memories. To facilitate this healing process, Sarah spent more time with her father, both in the hospital and outside when his health allowed. They decided to take small steps, doing simple things together like reading books, sharing meals, and reminiscing about their lives. Mr. Charles eagerly listened to Sarah's stories about her childhood, her career and her dreams, absorbing every detail as if trying to make up for lost time. One day, they decided to visit a nearby park where they could enjoy the fresh air and sunshine. As they walked slowly through the park, Mr. Charles paused to catch his breath and turned to Sarah. "I know I can't change the past, but I want you to know how proud I am of the woman you've become," he said, his voice filled with genuine admiration. "You've achieved so much on your own." Sarah smiled, touched by his words. "Thank you, Dad. It means a lot to hear that from you. I've always wondered what it would be like to share these moments with you." The conversation flowed more easily now, as they opened up about their fears and hopes. Mr. Charles apologized once again for his absence, expressing his deep regret and desire to make amends. Sarah, feeling the sincerity in his words, began to see the man he had become, rather than the man he once was. Despite the progress, there were still moments of tension and uncertainty. Sarah sometimes felt overwhelmed by the rapid changes and the impending loss of her father. But with the support of her aunt and the rest of the family, she found the strength to keep moving forward. Mr. Charles's family also played a crucial role in this process. They welcomed Sarah with open arms, eager to include her in their lives. Family gatherings became a regular occurrence, filled with laughter, shared meals, and new memories. Sarah was no longer an outsider. She was part of a family that had embraced her wholeheartedly. As Mr. Charles's health continued to decline, the family faced their greatest challenge yet, preparing for his final days. They rallied together, providing emotional support to both Mr. Charles and Sarah. The love and unity within the family became a source of strength, helping them navigate the difficult times ahead. In one poignant moment, Sarah sat by her father's bedside, holding his hand. "Dad, I know our time is limited, but I'm grateful for every moment we've had," as she said, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. "You've given me a family, and that's something I'll cherish forever." Mr. Charles squeezed her hand weakly, his eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Sarah. You've given me more than I could have ever hoped for. I love you, my daughter." The bond they had built was now unbreakable, forged through love, forgiveness, and resilience. Mr. Charles passed away peacefully, surrounded by the family he had longed to unite. His final days were filled with love and acceptance, a testament to the strength of the human spirit and the power of second chances. In the aftermath, Sarah found solace in the family she had gained. They supported each other, honoring Mr. Charles's memory by continuing to build the bonds he had helped create. Sarah's journey of overcoming challenges had not only brought her closer to her father, but had also given her a new family and a sense of belonging she had always yearned for. The story of Mr. Charles and Sarah is a powerful reminder that it's never too late to seek forgiveness, to build connections, and to find love in the most unexpected places. Their journey, marked by challenges and triumphs, serves as an inspiration to us all. As Mr. Charles's health continued to decline, the reality of his limited time became more apparent to everyone around him. The hospital room, once a place of fear and uncertainty, was now filled with warmth, love, and the soft murmur of family members sharing stories and laughter. Each day was a precious gift, a chance to create memories and to say the things that had been left unsaid for so long. Mr. Charles found solace in the presence of his daughter, Sarah, who had become a constant source of strength and comfort. Their bond had grown deeper with each passing day, the initial awkwardness replaced by genuine affection and understanding. Sarah's resilience and love provided Mr. Charles with the peace he had longed for, knowing that he had finally made things right. One evening, as the sun set, casting a warm golden glow through the window, Mr. Charles asked for a moment alone with Sarah. She sat by his bedside, holding his hand, her heart heavy yet filled with gratitude for the time they had spent together. "As Sarah," he began, his voice weak but filled with emotion, "I want you to know how much you mean to me. These past few months have been the happiest of my life. I'm so proud of the person you've become, and I'm grateful for every moment we've shared." Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes as she listened to her father's words. "I love you, Dad," as she said softly. "I'm grateful for you too. You've given me a family and a sense of belonging that I never thought I'd have." Mr. Charles smiled, a look of peace washing over his face. Thank you for giving me a second chance. Promise me you'll stay close to the family, that you'll lean on them when you need to. They love you, Sarah, just as much as I do. I promise, Sarah replied, her voice choked with emotion. We'll stay together, and we'll keep your memory alive. You'll always be a part of us. In his final days, Mr. Charles found comfort in the presence of his loved ones. They filled his room with laughter, music, and the scent of his favorite flowers. Each visit was a celebration of life, a testament to the love and unity that had blossomed from their reunion. One afternoon, the family gathered for a small, impromptu concert. Emily, with her guitar, led the group in singing some of Mr. Charles's favorite songs. The room was filled with harmonious voices and the gentle strumming of the guitar, creating a serene and joyful atmosphere. Mr. Charles closed his eyes, letting the music wash over him. He felt surrounded by love, a sense of contentment settling deep within his heart. He was no longer the man burdened by regrets. He was a father, a friend, and a beloved family member who had found redemption and peace. As the days grew shorter, Mr. Charles's strength waned, but his spirit remained unbroken. He faced his final moments with grace, surrounded by the people who mattered most. His last breaths were taken in the arms of those who loved him, their tears mingling with smiles as they whispered their farewells. Sarah held his hand until the very end, her heart breaking yet filled with an overwhelming sense of love and gratitude. She felt his grip loosen, his breathing slow, and finally he was at peace. The funeral was a beautiful tribute to Mr. Charles's life and the journey he had taken. Friends and family gathered to celebrate the man who had touched their lives in so many ways. They shared stories of his kindness, his strength, and the profound impact he had made in his final months. Sarah stood before the gathered crowd, her voice strong and clear as she spoke about her father. My dad taught me the power of forgiveness and the importance of family. His courage and love have left an indelible mark on my heart. Though he is no longer with us, his spirit lives on in the love we share and the memories we hold dear. The days following the funeral were filled with reflection and healing. The family, united by the love and lessons of Mr. Charles, grew even closer. They leaned on each other for support, finding strength in their shared grief and the beautiful legacy he had left behind. Sarah found peace in the knowledge that her father's final days had been filled with love and reconciliation. She carried his memory with her, a source of inspiration and strength as she moved forward with her life. Mr. Charles's farewell was a poignant reminder that it is never too late to seek forgiveness, to build connections, and to find peace. His journey, marked by love and redemption, had come to an end, but his legacy would live on in the hearts of those he had touched.